Ladies and gentlemen, I'm really delighted to be here, largely because I'm playing truant from another meeting, trying to ensure that Education Scotland, which is the body charged with improving education in Scotland, is fit for purpose in 20 or 25 years. So I have been beamed back from about 2030 to be with you. And the interim statement I would give to you at the moment is that in 2030 it's chaos. But we are hopeful by 4:30 that some order might have come. The other reason I'm delighted to be here, and I am but a simple old age pensioner, if I may pick up the theme of simplicity, is that I've been introduced as a professor. Now, my wife is a professor. I have never aspired to such stature in academia, so Liz, I'm really grateful to you, and I'll come back anytime you like. I'm actually a slight oddity in the course of the afternoon's programme for the simple reason that I'm not from a medical background, a veterinary background, or a scientific background. I am a rather sort of confused character who's got a portfolio career. But what I do want, I hope, is to give a leavening of another experience, a sense of experience in relation to the developing world. And I want to address, and I will read this because the slide was indeed rather hard to see, what I would regard as the indisputably meritorious objective statement of the Global Health Academy to improve global health and make life better through collaborative, interdisciplinary research, education and resource development. And I only want to address two elements of that, the collaborative part and the resource development, and that in the context of voluntary service overseas. VSO, as some of you may know, was formed in 1958 by predecessors who, as they saw the ending of national service for young men in the UK, were despondent. What would put some steel in the backbone of 18 to 20-year-olds who no longer would have military service as an obligatory part of growing up? So VSO was formed in order that young men of that age could spend 2 years overseas because national service was for 2 years. And from that early beginning, we now have an international NGO with a worldwide federation and a large grasp and reach, which I'll describe, and of which I'm proud to be the deputy chairman. When I became involved, we had 110 countries in which we were active. We're now active in only 35 on the basis that we need to bring focus to what we do and making sure that the programs we run are indeed programmatic and are accumulating instead of, as we had, wonderfully good initiatives, but they were little drops here and there, and the accumulation of that was much less than it is now on the basis of being focused. I was anticipating, because I come to this lecture theatre quite often, and it has to be said of the Fellowship of the Royal Society of Edinburgh, the average age is not the average age of this audience. So I was going to say encouragingly to you, we now do accept volunteers up to the age of 75, but I see that's an unnecessary mark in the context of this room. But the average age of our volunteers, is 45, for the simple reason that what the developing world wants is skill, experience, and the ability to contribute to developing programs which they have identified, whether that be in health, in education, in governance, in engineering, or business development. And our assignments last from either 4 weeks up to still 2 years, and are absolutely in partnership, either with ministries, local NGOs, or indeed with business. And most importantly, with very clear, measurable outcomes. And we measure those outcomes not so that we are dancing constantly to the demands of our funders, who have their own outcomes, but we look to make sure that we are satisfied as a group of people that the outcomes that are achieved are significant. And whilst we are still recruiting volunteers, and I'm not here as a drum sergeant beating a drum for this at the moment, whilst we are recruiting in the UK and in Europe and North America for volunteers to go to Africa and to Asia, you might be interested to know that we have actually in Africa more skilled volunteers working in Africa from India than we do from North America, Europe, including Britain. And we are still sending volunteers to India. VSO China is sending volunteers to Africa. And in programs for national volunteering, particularly in West Africa, we have, between Ghana and Nigeria, more than 4,000 national volunteers who are volunteering within their own country as VSO volunteers and across tribal districts in those communities, which is of vital importance. So the reach is wider than John Snow, who is a former VSO volunteer, tries to convey from time to time, because he is locked in the early years of VSO in imagining that actually not as much has changed as it has. The important point I want to make, and hence the title that I said I would speak under, of Partnerships of Trust, is that that's only proved possible because of genuine and listening partnerships, which are based on parity of esteem and trust. Justinian, the Eastern Roman emperor of the 6th century, was a man who created a set of standards for public life and indeed codified law at that time. And he said quite unequivocally that the definition of a partnership is one which has an exuberance of trust. There is another view, a current view. My old friend Julian Middleton, who helped set up Demos and founded Common Purpose, has a rather more cynical view, which some of you might, particularly as grant seekers, respond to, which is that the definition of a partnership is a sublimation of loathing in pursuit of funding. So I would just put to you as a challenge, are your partnerships based on trust, true parity of esteem, or are they more seen as funding opportunities? And if not, if they're not based on the first elements of that, then you should reflect on it. Because certainly the experience that I and colleagues have had is that if they're not so based, they will not be effective. Finally, let me mention a partnership with the UK government that I and colleagues have been working quite intensely around over the last few months. And I refer to what some of you may have heard of, but others not, ICS, International Citizens Service. And here I will go slightly off-piste in terms of saying one or two things which may not be politically correct to some. But as you may recall, David Cameron decided that he would create the big society for the UK. That left a number of people involved in the third sector rather baffled, because they thought the big society had been around for a while, but it was wonderful that he had either discovered it or acknowledged it, although it's still leaving some of us in his wake a trifle confused. I understand this is true. He wakened up one morning and thought, well, I've dealt with the big society for the United Kingdom, now there's the wider world. So he made a speech which hadn't been cleared with DFID, which was rather careless, in which he announced the formation of a UK Peace Corps, which would send 18 to 21-year-olds abroad for periods of up to 3 months. And that was for the benefit of these individuals and for the communities from which they came. Now, if you wanted to mark that, I think you'd give it about nothing out of 10, other than the sentiment, on the basis that the Peace Corps to many has always been regarded as the junior wing of the CIA, that whatever the developing world requires, it is not a colonial touch, which is the UK sending people to be developed with no mention of what gain there might be to the host countries in the developing world who were to receive them. And yet the genesis of the idea was good, which was to enrich the lives of young people. After a lot of lobbying and persuasion of Number 10, VSO with 7 other UK NGOs is now running a programme under the rubric of ICS, which will send 7,000 people between the age of 18 and 25 to host countries where they will match up with 7,000 individuals from those communities in order that there is mutuality. There are defined outcomes from those interactions. So the prospect of having an arrangement which does indeed allow for development outcomes, it allows for the enriching of individuals, it will create lifelong connections between the 7,000 UK citizens and the 7,000 from elsewhere, and it will allow for the development of society here in a better way, is now an altogether more worthy proposition. And I would say to you that as far as this work is concerned, pay attention to it on the basis that it may be that in some of your work, some of these individuals over the next 3 years could indeed play a part. That's really all I wanted to say, other than the fact that I come to this, as I say, from other commitments, and I'm going to do, therefore, what really irritates me with cabinet ministers is they sweep in to gatherings like this. They say some words, wise or otherwise, words. They then disappear before they can be questioned about anything, which is very annoying. And then they turn up for the dinner in the evening. Well, I'm about to leave you, and I will indeed be returning for the dinner in the evening, but I can say to you that Liz Grant has the ability to track you down anywhere on the globe, because I've not come from Brazil, but I've just come back from North America, where I was, of course, in laser beam as far as Liz was concerned. So if I've said anything which attracts any interest at all, then please have a word with Liz, and she can steer you towards me. Thank you very much.